Hello and welcome to Analysis. I am Onyi Adekunle. Finding a cure for the coronavirus is perhaps the biggest news the world is awaiting at this time. Already, some vaccines have shown positive results in early trial, and at the same time, there's been widespread interest in hydroxychloroquine as both a preventive measure for treating COVID-19 patients. Recently, a Nigerian US-based doctor touted the effectiveness of the drug in a viral video claiming she has successfully treated over 350 COVID-19 patients with hydroxychloroquine. Recall that in some recovered patients also in Nigeria, including Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed, publicly advocated the use of the drugs despite reservations of the World Health Organization and some studies countering the claims. But let's now hear what medical professionals think of this. I'm now being joined on the program by Dr. Japhet Olugbogi, a public health physician and chairman, Nigeria Medical Association COVID Committee in Lagos State. Thank you very much, Doc, for talking to us on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
First off, let me ask you, do you agree with Dr. Stellas' position that there may be a kind of conspiracy to cover up the effectiveness of chloroquine in treating COVID-19 patients?
No, I cannot say categorically that I agree or disagree with her because I'm not seeing things from the perspective from which she is seeing things. So I can't not say that there is a conspiracy to cover the effects of the use of hydroxychloroquine.
So what would be your own position? Because we've seen a lot of back and forth on this chloroquine issue. So what exactly is your own position?
Thank you very much. My position has been clear from the onset. The WHO has already stated that hydroxychloroquine does not cure COVID-19, and neither does it prevent the spread of COVID-19. We are aware that what hydroxychloroquine does is to prevent the virus from, any virus for that matter, from replicating fast as they should be. And the same may actually apply to COVID-19. But then again, it does not offer some sort of cure for the virus. I think what is creating the misunderstanding is the fact that coronavirus itself, COVID-19 itself, is a form of a flu. And we know that most flus will go away even without you using any drug at all. We are aware that at least 8 to 9 out of 10 people who have normal flu, one of which is COVID-19, coronavirus, will have respite after a few days, even without them using any drug at all. So when you use hydroxychloroquine for someone that has coronavirus and they come out clean, they come out healed, there's that tendency that you may think that it was the hydroxychloroquine that you administered to a patient that actually cured the patient. Meanwhile, it is the patient's immune system that took over and healed the patient. Now, as per the claims of Dr. Stellas, Dr. Manuela, well, she may have used hydroxychloroquine, zinc, and azithromycin successfully. But like I said, she has treated about 350 patients, according to her. But for us to know the real effect of hydroxychloroquine and these other drugs, we need to expose much more number of patients to it. For instance, there is a vaccine in the UK which was said to be able to cure, to prevent coronavirus spread. But this vaccine has only been tested in about 40 people. For you to have a blanket statement, a blanket assertion that that vaccine is actually potent and can prevent the spread of COVID-19, you need to test it in a larger number of people. Yes, because for instance, if we are talking about 7 billion people in the world. We are talking about several millions of people who have been affected with COVID-19. And we are talking about success in about 350 people. For instance, let's look at the example of the Madagascar portion. When the Madagascar portion came out, the Madagascans, is that what they called? They claim that they have a portion that can cure and prevent COVID-19. But we found out that by the time they used the potion in a larger number of people, by the time a larger number of people came down with the virus, it wasn't actually preventing deaths in them or even curing them. So epidemiology, in the epidemiology of a pandemic, the number of people affected, it's a game of numbers. So we always deal with the numbers. We cannot isolate a few number of people and believe that the results you get from them will be, binding on all other set of people that are exposed to that same disease. So it's a game of numbers. You need to expose a larger number of people to the drug or to the drugs to actually know whether it's actually contributory to the cure, as a cure or as a preventive medication.
So as a professional now, are you worried that with this recent development, it may actually force people to stock up on chloroquine, and then we may have a situation where people are using it just indiscriminately?
Yes, thank you very much. I am worried actually because we have seen in the last few days, we have seen some people telling us that after all, they have found a cure to COVID-19. They are already taking off their guards. They're already using hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine. They're already dismantling all the guards they had against COVID-19 and in the preventive measures of COVID-19. This is a worrisome threat because there is a study that actually stipulated that in a controlled trial, 3 sets of patients, the first set were given the normal care that should be given to somebody that has flu. And the second set of people were given hydroxychloroquine, and the third set of people were given hydroxychloroquine plus zinc and azithromycin. And we found out that out of the 644 people, we found out that those who were given hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin didn't come out better than those who did not receive hydroxychloroquine. Now you can imagine that number of people used in that trial was about 644, far more than 350, which was claimed by Dr. Emanuela. So we always need to, and then those who also took the hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin had their liver enzymes quantity increasing. That is to say that the drugs were having negative effects already on their liver. So you can imagine this is one of the reasons why we are having reservations in this part of the world for using hydroxychloroquine, because we know that chloroquine itself has its attendant side effects, it has its attendant problems. What you find out at the end of the day is that a lot more people are getting sick from the side effects of chloroquine. A lot more people may even develop very serious illness from the side effects of chloroquine, as against even what would have happened to them if they had ordinary SARS-CoV-2, which could cure itself within them, even without them using any drugs at all.
Yeah, so what can we now begin to do now? Because from the picture you have just painted, this is quite serious, so that we do not solve this problem and then we have another one to deal with shortly after this.
Thank you very much. We can use zinc as an immune booster. We can use vitamin D capsules as an immune booster. We can use vitamin C as an immune booster. But hydroxychloroquine will not prevent. Okay, by the way, zinc, what zinc does is similar to what hydroxychloroquine does. And it almost has, no side effects compared to hydroxychloroquine. So oral zinc is actually safer for use with vitamin C and vitamin D compared to hydroxychloroquine. So I am urging the populace, you can use oral zinc, you can use vitamin C, you can use vitamin D to boost your immunity, to guard against flu and some other infections like that. But hydroxychloroquine is actually not entirely safe, and it wouldn't even prevent you from, according to the randomized control trials being carried out, according to even the FDA in the United States, actually stopped the use of hydroxychloroquine. We are all aware that President Trump was a strong advocate of hydroxychloroquine in the United States. But when they found out that it wasn't helping as much as they thought it would help, it wasn't healing people as much as they thought it would heal people, the FDA had to stop the use of hydroxychloroquine. So the Nigerian government is not recommending the use of hydroxychloroquine, and the NMA as well is not recommending the use of hydroxychloroquine. As a matter of fact, in the Lagos Emergency Operations Center, I can vividly remember that there was a time that they tried the use of hydroxychloroquine, and it was debated whether they should use it or not. But they found out that because there was no study, no randomized controlled trial that was actually supporting the use of this hydroxychloroquine. So they didn't go with that. But oral zinc, yes, can be used. Vitamin C, yes, can be used. Vitamin D, yes, can be used. But we need to still observe the preventive protocols. Wear face masks when we are in large gathering of people, offer one another some sort of social distancing, avoid a large gathering of people, and wear our face masks when we should, and wash our hands with soap and running water as much as we should. And then as much as possible, observe cough and sneeze etiquette so that we can prevent the transmission of COVID-19. If we can do this, we can, as much as possible, prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Yeah, sure. And then let me ask you, we know that some vaccines have shown success in early trials. So are you optimistic that very soon, maybe shortly, we would get a breakthrough and be successful in finding a cure for COVID-19 globally?
Yes, I'm optimistic because the researchers, virologists are not resting on their oars. A lot of researchers are working on vaccines. We are aware there's one in the US, there's one going on in the UK, another one in Russia, another one in China. So a lot of work is going into this to prevent a further outbreak of the disease. Also, but they need to go through the 4 phases of trial for us to be able to ascertain that those vaccines actually work for what we expect them to work for. So, but we are optimistic that very soon we may be able to get it.
And lastly, before I let you go, I also want to get your take on, we know that schools will be reopening very soon. What do you think should be measures that should be put in place to ensure that we don't see cases of students contracting the coronavirus? We saw what happened in Ghana. Schools reopened and then students contracted. Schools had to be shut again. So what exactly would be your advice to school administrators and the government now?
Yes, thank you very much. The Committee on COVID-19 of the NMA, we have developed a protocol, and we have passed it on to the State Officers Committee of the Nigerian Medical Association. This protocol is for the reopening of schools for every school proprietor or proprietress or school head teacher or principals for them to use. I just want to urge them, and when this protocol is being released, they should follow it to the letter. Inside the protocol, it contains how they can decontaminate the school premises, how the school's classrooms should be spacious and spaced out for students, how they should have hand wash basins, how they should wear their face masks, all the things that they need to do to prevent the spread of COVID-19 amongst our pupils. They are all included in the protocol. So we just want to urge the policymakers, when they get a hold of this policy and protocol, they should ensure that all the things that they do, all the logistics that need to be put in place for this to happen, they should put it in place.
All right. Dr. Japheth Olugbogi, public health physician, we thank you very much for speaking to us on Analysis. We'll go on a short break now, and when we return, we'll continue with this conversation. Please stay with us. All right, welcome back. And if you're just tuning in, this is Analysis, and we're still discussing the controversy surrounding the hydroxychloroquine And I have joining me now on the program Omori Aigbe, who is a public affairs analyst. Thank you very much, Mr. Aigbe, for joining us on the program.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, first, let me ask you, what do you make of all of these controversies? Do you really think that countries have anything to hide at this time, considering the fact that this pandemic is ravaging the whole world?
Well, but let's be specific in terms of the way it is. So this is what we call international politics. In international relation, international politics, just like the local politics that we experience in the Nigerian setup, there's also that dynamic within the international community that who does it first matter a lot. So you see Donald Trump accusing China of bringing COVID-19. So the question is, when you seek Donald Trump, it will tell you it's China virus. Donald Trump doesn't believe it is COVID-19 or coronavirus. He call it China virus. That's international politics. So you want to attribute that the crisis of the world came from China. So if there's going to be a cure, so when the cure comes from countries like Russia or the US or China, they are going to take the international glory. So most of the time, there's that conflict at international development level. So the question is, who finds the cure? Yes, it is China virus. It is COVID-19. It started in Wuhan, in the city of China. But who is going to provide the global medicine or vaccine becomes the argument. So the US is pushing, Russia is pushing, everyone is pushing. Everyone will take the lead. And I'm sure, so the first global acceptance of the vaccine will be the country that will have it.
And what do you make of the viral video made by Dr. Stellas saying that hydroxychloroquine is actually the cure for COVID-19?
So it is not the first time we're knowing about the chloroquine being proposed. Don't forget that Trump made that statement long ago. For Trump, it is the way to go. But the FDA did an analysis and undermined that Trump was passing disinformation. So the question was, Trump is not a medical doctor, neither is he a physician, neither is he a public health specialist. Trump is a businessman. However, Trump were relying on some medical advice, and to be candid, that went global. Every country was testing the chloroquine medicine and all of that, including NAFDAC, the Nigerian NAFDAC. And at the time, the World Bank, the WHO, the World Health Organization, had also tested. So there were samples of close to 97,000 cases that were used for the analysis. But Dr. Stellas is about 350. So the question will be, if 350 works, and so an agency, an entity has tested about 93,000, between 93 and 97,000 cases, and they can't find the validity of the use of the chloroquine, then it calls for something. Because I am not in medicine, but what I do know medicine is there must be some medical trial. And that trial, that is why I take a mind back to the Abalaka days of HIV. Abalaka said he had a cure. So if you had a cure, you don't go public with your cure. It is the standard. It is academic. You need to bring your cure to the fore to be tested medically, so that when you treat one, you must treat two, you must treat three. It is not that you treat one; they must be at the same level in monitoring and evaluation, M&E. There's also what we call randomized trial. So when we do randomized trial, we say you keep A and you have B. You give A a certain intervention. You deprive B from having that kind of intervention. Then after a while, you see the way two of them are going, you monitor them in a closed environment. So what Dr. Stellas ought to have done was to have the 350 in a closed environment and have another set of people who we get, maybe this is COVID-19 patient, another set of COVID-19 patient, you put them in a controlled environment. So what do? You test this with chloroquine and you don't test this with chloroquine. After a while, you see the way both has progressed, and then you make your inference. But that has not happened. What Dr. Stellas has done is that she is a medical doctor, and she has treated over 350, according to her, But the question is, what is the background of each of these 350 people? What kind of medical condition do they have? Who tested them to be COVID-19? So those are the arguments, and it's trained us up to international politics. Because don't forget that Trump has earlier mentioned it, and so suddenly Dr. Stellas became the pride of Twitter and across the globe. Everybody's talking about what the press conference she did. She did a press conference in Washington, D.C. So there's also a round of political interpretation to that public conversation. Our Twitter handle, our Twitter following suddenly jacked up within 5 hours. A lot of following. All the Trump supporters started to follow her, and then there was this bad one gone. So the question is, there is politics. It is not just everything is politics. Because
of course, we cannot say that is very correct, so that is the true picture of what is happening. So what you're saying in essence is that what Dr. Stellas claims should be put to more tests, or there should be more trials. Is that what you're saying?
If you don't do the trial, it can be interpreted either way. So when you do, because I'm thinking about medicine, because that's exactly what we do in M&E. We call you do sample size, and you do an interpretation. It has to be scientific. It means that if you go through that same route, you are going to achieve the same result. So, for example, there are over 350 COVID-19 patients in Nigeria. Why have we started the randomized trial? There are scientists who have put themselves up. In Germany, testing are going on. In the UK, close to what we are supposed to have now would have been coming from Oxford University, with trial, with a lot of medicine being tested to check if all of this works. But it must be evidential. It must be scientific. It means that if another country follow the same route, you will achieve the same result. That you treat it with chloroquine, azoted chloroquine, doesn't mean that the condition of those patients are the same with another, because the US almost have the greatest number of COVID-19 cases at the moment. So can we now have it? I don't also want us to sweep her away, because it's important to test that validity, even though it has been tested. It's important about this time that FDA, WHO, NAFDAC, NCDC, Ministry of Health, we need to do the sample size methodology. Let's randomize this trial. Let's get the people doesn't need to know what they are getting. You treat some with certain medicine, you treat others with certain medicine, and what we are treating right now is more or less an opportunistic infection. Someone had lung blockage in the throat, you treat that HEMET. So nobody knows what is COVID-19, and that is why it's called novel. Novel because it's new. Until people know, we now remove the word novel, then we cannot know it's COVID-19. It is SARS, it is this. So we know them, but for the now, vaccine for coronavirus is still very, very, that's why the contestation is there. So the question is, Trump has invited Dr. Stellas, and he has met with her, I suppose, because I haven't read anything. So Trump is going to amplify Dr. Stellas' voice. And there are going to be the far left in the US, maybe the likes of Bill Gates, who are supposedly anti-chloroquine, and then all of that. So we're going to see, because she alleged that people are after her life.
All right. So lastly, before I let you go, Mr. Mori, can I just get your take on, we know that Nigeria exit classes would be resuming to take their examinations very soon. What exactly is your take on that?
I think it's the right thing to do. We have advocated for that long, because exit classes is not the entire school. So it's not school. The school is not reopening. It is certain individuals within the school community. This exit means those who are going to the next class, SSC and all of that. So it is important that you don't keep that on. So even though they run their SSC today, they don't have to go to the university next year until such a time that we know that it is safe. And there's a lot of argument that we can't put our children in jeopardy. We can't expose them to all of that. But exit classes is minimal. So they can share the classes for the entire school. So they don't have to cluster in one classroom. So if you have a block of classroom that used to have about 500 students in the entire primary 1 to 6 or JSS 1 to 6, and SS3, sorry. And in that school, JSS 1 is not coming, 2 is not coming, 3 is not coming, SS1 is in there, SS2 is in there. Only SS3 writing their SSC or GCE is a minimum number, so you can spread them across the block of classroom. Then they can minimize, they can actually observe social distancing. But the question is, we must be thinking about school reopening. We must put strategy in place for school reopening, because what we now know about COVID-19, a lot is changing. That if you isolate for 14 days, even though you have COVID-19, there's a tendency that if your opportunity infection don't show up, I mean those symptoms don't show up, that you are unable to spread it. So there are new dynamics, a series of information we are getting to know about COVID-19. COVID-19 isn't what it was at the beginning. Yes, face mask is still very valid. Dr. Stellas said no face mask. I mean, I will argue that as a social scientist,
that's still
because
valid.
of what
Medical
we know
experts have told us that.
Yes. So I will argue that even as a social scientist, because droplet, it's already established. A droplet, there's a tendency that droplet can spread. So when you pack students in a classroom, and except there's distancing, in most of our schools, particularly private schools, those local private schools, if you go to their classroom, they are packed. They are packed. Because right now we go to church, we go to mosque, we go to market. So we have to find a way of maintaining distancing in all of this area. But unlike kids, they may not understand this measure. That is one of the measures about saying, let school not reopen yet. This exit classes, exit students have some basic knowledge of control, so they could know what it means when we talk about face masks. They know what it means when you talk about social, physical distancing. They know all of those conditions, but they may not be consistent. What we're talking about is consistency, correct use of the thing, not just use. Yeah. That's it.
All right. Mr. Murray, thank you very much for sharing your insights with us on analysis.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. That's where we draw the curtains on this episode. We thank you very much for watching. See you again next time. Bye-bye.